Space was quiet here. Too quiet. The cargo ship Varen's Pride drifted at the border of Orion Sector 7, where the mapped galaxy ended and the great black unknown began. Most star charts labeled this place with only 2 words. Human space. To Captain. Rawl Vex. Those 2 words meant nothing but superstition. Stories. Rumors. Tales told in spaceports to scare rookies. But the crew didn't laugh. They had seen the wrecks. Even now, outside the forward viewport, a massive alien battleship lay broken, in the void split in 2 like a child's toy. No scorch marks, no signs of battle, just destroyed. Its hull drifted slowly, spinning, with frozen bodies still floating in the darkness. "Captain," the navigator, Lorna, whispered. "We should not be here." Rawl kept his eyes on the display. "We're only here because here is the fastest route. We cut 2 weeks off the run if we pass through human space. 2 weeks means we get paid twice before anyone else." No one answered. That was when the broadcast began. It started as static. Then a low metallic voice cut through. "Entering human. Space means death. This is your last warning," the voice repeated. Over and over, exactly every 10 seconds. No emotion, no urgency, just cold fact. The crew froze. The voice was speaking perfect galactic standard. No accent, no distortion, except for the faint hum behind it, like machinery breathing. "Source?" Rawl asked. Lorna tapped at the console. Her hands shook. "Everywhere." Rawl frowned. "Everywhere?" She nodded. "Every channel, every frequency, even emergency comm bands. The signal's coming from inside our own ship now." The engineer, Krell, cursed under his breath. "That's impossible. It would mean something's—" "Don't say it," Rawl cut him off. They didn't need to hear the word inside. The crew traded uneasy glances. The broadcast kept playing. "Entering human space means death. This is your last warning." "Shut it down," Rawl ordered. Krell opened the comms panel, yanked out half the cables, and powered off the entire array. The screens went dark. The voice stopped. For 3 whole seconds, silence returned. Then, "Entering human space means death. This is your last warning." It was coming from the internal speakers. They weren't even connected anymore. Lorna's hands hovered over her controls. "Captain, should we turn back?" Rawl looked out at the drifting wreck again. He thought about the payment, the 2 weeks saved, the risk of losing the contract. "No," he said finally. "It's just an old human scare tactic. They want us to stay out. We're going through." Nobody argued, but nobody looked relieved either. The Varen's Pride moved forward. The stars ahead seemed wrong. Not just darker, but distant in a way space normally wasn't, almost like looking at a painting instead of the real sky. As they crossed the invisible line into human space, something happened all at once. Every light in the ship flickered. Every sensor screen went black. The artificial gravity hummed, then wavered, making their stomachs turn. "Shields!" Rawl barked. "Gone!" Lorna said immediately. "It's like they were never there!" The engineer slammed his tools onto the table. "Nothing's responding. It's like the ship is asleep but still flying. Navigation? Dead. Engines? Dead." The only sound left was the soft hum of life support. And the broadcast. "Entering human space means death. This is your last warning." Except now, it was different. The voice was whispering. Still clear, still metallic, but closer. As if it was right there in the control room with them. "Captain," Lorna said. "We're not alone." Rawl turned. "Explain." Her eyes were wide, fixed on the forward viewport. He looked. At first he saw nothing, just the endless black. Then, movement. A shape was sliding out of the darkness. Slowly, silently. No running lights, no engine glow, no heat signature, just a shadow, vast and shapeless at first, then resolving into the outline of something built. It was bigger than their ship, much bigger. Its hull was pitch black, absorbing the faint starlight. Sharp angles, no markings, no windows, no visible weapons. Yet, as it moved, Rawl could feel it watching them. The shadow kept perfect pace with them. If they drifted left, it drifted left. If they slowed, it slowed. Krell's voice was low. "That's no ship. Ships have heat signatures. That thing is cold." "Scan it," Rawl ordered. Lorna hesitated, then ran the scan. The results came. Back instantly. Classification unknown. Part biological, part machine. Rawl's mouth went dry. Biological? That size? Before anyone could respond, the comm panel, which Krell had ripped apart minutes ago, crackled to life. The same metallic voice spoke again. But this time, it wasn't the warning. It said only 4 words. "You shouldn't be here." The crew stared at the dark ship. No movement, no weapons fire, just those words. Then, in an instant, the shadow was gone. One heartbeat it was there, the next it wasn't. Rawl blinked at the empty space. "Where?" Lorna's voice cracked. "Captain?" He turned toward her and saw her pointing straight ahead. The shadow was back. But now, it was directly in front of them. The Varen's pride drifted toward the black shape like a piece of dust caught in a current. No engines, no control, no choice. Captain Rawl Vex gripped the arms of his chair so hard his claws dug into the metal. "Reverse thrusters!" he barked. "Dead," Lorna said, her voice shaking. "All systems still unresponsive." The engineer Krell slammed his palm on the console. "It's pulling us in, not with a tractor beam, with space itself." The shadow ahead grew larger, sharper in detail. It was unlike anything they'd seen before. The hull was matte black, built from plates that seemed to drink in light. No windows, no insignia, no obvious weapons, yet it radiated something, not energy, not heat, but presence, the kind of presence that made you feel like you were already dead. Lorna stared at the sensor display. Still nothing. No thermal reading, no life signs, no power signature. "That's not possible," Krell muttered. "It's worse than that," Lorna said, tapping the screen. "It's not in our sensors, it's ignoring them, like it chooses whether we can see it." The comms, that still ripped open, came alive again. "Do you understand where you are?" the metallic voice asked. Rawl forced his tone to stay calm. "Identify yourself." Silence. The voice came again, closer. This time. "You entered human space. You will not leave." Krell swore under his breath. "I told you we should have turned back." "Shut up," Rawl snapped. The shadow shifted, moving to the side of their ship, pacing them. It was too close now. He could see faint lines along its hull, like scars or seams. And every so often, something inside those seams seemed to move. Then, the ship spoke again, not through the comms, through the walls. "Stop struggling." The gravity on Varen's pride shifted instantly. The crew was slammed into their seats as if the weight of a small moon pressed down on them. Lights dimmed to a faint red glow. Metal creaked under strain. Rawl's chest felt like it was caving in. He could barely breathe. And then, just as suddenly, the pressure lifted. The shadow had stopped moving alongside them. It was gone. Lorna looked around wildly. "Where?" A deafening thud came from above. The hull shook violently. Krell checked the readouts. "Something's attached." "To the dorsal side." Before they could react, the lights in the corridor outside the bridge began to go out, one by one, getting closer. Footsteps echoed, slow, heavy, deliberate, not mechanical, not alien. Something else. The bridge door hissed, and through it stepped a figure. It was tall, wrapped in deep black armor with no visible seams. No weapon in its hands, but Rawl could feel the danger pouring off it. The visor was smooth and featureless, reflecting only the red glow of the emergency lights. The figure tilted its head slightly, as if studying each crew member. Then, in perfect galactic standard, it spoke. "Ral Vex of Lorath Prime. We need to talk." No one moved. The armored figure stood in the center of the bridge like a statue. The visor reflected their faces back at them. Pale, sweating, afraid. "Captain," Ral Vex's throat felt dry. "How do you know my name?" The figure tilted its head again. No answer. Instead, it stepped forward. The sound of its boots was heavy, too heavy, like each step carried the weight of an entire world. Lorna's hand twitched toward the emergency. "Alarm!" The figure turned its helmet toward her before she even touched it. She froze. Somehow, it knew. Then, without warning, the Varan's pride shook violently. The deck trembled under their feet. Gravity surged. Hard. It was like being hit by a wall of weight. Ral slammed back into his chair, his chest crushed under invisible pressure. The air seemed to thicken, making every breath a battle. "Systems. Reading. No anomalies." Krell gasped, his hands clawing at the console. "But gravity field is being controlled externally." The armored figure didn't move. It stood perfectly still while the rest of them struggled under the crushing force, as if the change didn't affect it at all. Its voice came through the helmet, calm, steady, almost bored. "Do not fight it. You'll only make it worse." The weight increased again. Somewhere below, they heard metal groaning under the strain. A panel burst in the wall, sparks showering across the floor. Lorna cried out as blood vessels burst in her eyes from the pressure. Krell collapsed to his knees. Ral forced himself to glare at the figure. "If you wanted us dead, you would have done it already. What do you want?" For the first time, the figure stepped closer to him. The smooth visor stopped just inches from Ral's face. "I want you to understand where you are." The gravity suddenly dropped back to normal. Everyone gasped for breath, lungs burning, but the relief lasted only seconds. From the overhead intercom, one they had disconnected hours ago, the metallic voice returned. "Prepare for boarding." Ral's eyes widened. "Boarding? There's already someone." He stopped. The armored figure turned its head slowly toward the bridge doors. From the other side came the sound of many footsteps. Heavy, in perfect rhythm, the lights in the corridor began to dim, one by one. Lorna whispered, "Captain, there's more of them." The figure on the bridge said nothing. Then the door hissed open again, and shadows filled the frame. At least 6 more armored shapes stepped through, their visors glowing faintly in the red. Light, none carried weapons, but somehow, that was worse. The 6 new armored figures fanned out across the bridge without a word. Their movements were precise, like a single mind controlling many bodies. The original figure, the one who knew Ral's name, didn't turn to greet them. It simply pointed at the crew. 2 boarders moved toward Lorna and Krell. They didn't grab them, didn't speak, just stood close enough to make the air feel heavy. Lorna's breathing quickened. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "Captain," she whispered, but Ral gave a small shake of his head. Now was not the time to push. The leader's voice came again, calm and deep. "You are in human space. This is not a place for your kind. It never was." Ral tried to keep his tone steady. "We were just passing through." "No one just passes through," the figure replied. The words felt like a sentence being handed down. Krell finally spoke up, his voice sharp with fear. "What do you want with us? You can't." The nearest armored figure moved so fast, Krell didn't see it. One moment it was standing still. The next, its hand was on Krell's chest, and Krell was on the floor gasping for air. The figure didn't push hard. It didn't have to. Something about that touch felt like his body was being weighed down from the inside. "Enough!" Rawl barked. The leader's visor turned toward him. "You think you are in command here? You are not." The deck under their feet vibrated. Lorna glanced at the displays. "Captain, our ship is moving again." "Under whose control?" She swallowed hard. "Not ours." On the main screen, the black void ahead began to shift. It wasn't empty. It was full of massive shapes, dark, motionless, almost blending with the stars. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, each one the same, black armor, no lights, no heat. Lorna's voice trembled. "Those aren't ships, are they?" The leader answered for her. "They are the ones who never left." Before anyone could ask what that meant, one of the silent boarders touched the console. Every display on the Varen's Pride went black. Then a single image appeared. A map. It showed their current position, deep in a dead zone, with one glowing point ahead. The leader spoke again. "We are taking you there." Rawl's claws dug into his chair. "And if we refuse?" The leader tilted its head slightly, almost as if amused. "You won't." The map zoomed in on the glowing point. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a station. It was something else, something alive, and it was waiting for them. The Varen's Pride moved without engines. There was no vibration from thrusters, no sound of power cycling, yet the stars outside the viewports drifted slowly past, pulling them deeper into the death zone. On the bridge, no one spoke. The silent boarders stood like statues, their glowing, visors fixed forward. Only the leader moved, pacing slowly behind the crew's chairs like a predator checking its prey. After an hour, the black ahead began to change. At first it was so faint, Lorna thought her eyes were playing tricks. A shape, huge and moving. Krell leaned closer to the screen. That can't be... "It's alive," Lorna whispered before he could finish. The thing ahead wasn't made of metal. Its surface shifted like muscle under skin. Patterns of faint light rippled across it, slow and steady, like the pulse of a giant heart. The leader stopped pacing. "You see it now, the edge of the horizon." "The what?" Rawl asked, his voice low. "The last thing most ever see." As they drew closer, the scale became terrifying. The living structure stretched for hundreds of kilometers, curling in on itself like a sleeping beast. Its surface bristled with spines that flexed and turned toward the ship, as if it felt their approach. Krell's hands hovered over the manual controls. "We can still turn around." One of the silent boarders placed a hand gently on his shoulder. The pressure was light, yet Krell froze, unable to move his arm. The ship slowed, not because the crew stopped it, but because the horizon wanted it too. A mouth-like opening began to form in the creature's side, layers of shifting tissue peeling away. It wasn't just opening, it was inviting. Lorna swallowed hard. "We're going inside it?" The leader finally faced them. "You are going where no one leaves unchanged." The Varen's Pride crossed the threshold. Darkness swallowed the viewports. Something, wet and metallic, tapped against the hull, as though dozens of unseen hands were feeling the ship. Every sensor went dead. Then, in the pitch black, a deep sound rumbled through the ship. Not through the air, but straight into their bones. It was a voice, and it was speaking their names. At first, no one breathed. The sound wasn't coming from the ship's speakers. It wasn't even in the air. It was inside them. Rawl's claws gripped the armrests. Did you all hear that?" Lorna nodded, her eyes wide. "It said my name, in my own voice." Krell's lips trembled. "It said my name too, but it sounded wrong, like my dead brother was saying it." The leader of the boarders stood still, visor tilted slightly toward the ceiling. Like it was listening to something far above. The deep rumble came again. This time it was clearer. Rawl, Lorna, Krell, you have crossed into my body. Lorna's throat tightened. Body? The voice continued, slow and deliberate. For centuries the living stay out, the dead stay in. The walls of the bridge seemed to pulse. Not metal, something organic, flexing gently, as if the entire ship were inside the lungs of a giant creature. Krell took a step back. We're inside a living thing, a thing big enough to swallow cities. Suddenly, one of the silent boarders moved for the first time since entering the creature. It raised a hand and touched the wall. The surface shifted under its touch, pulling away to reveal something beyond, a tunnel. It stretched into darkness, lined with faintly glowing veins that pulsed with a slow, sick rhythm. The leader turned. To the crew. You will come. It wishes to see you. Rawl stood. And if we don't? The leader's visor flickered once. Then it will come to you. Without warning, a sharp jolt rocked the Varen's pride. Lorna fell against the console. The rumble in their bones became a throbbing pain. Krell grabbed his head. It's inside my thoughts. It's showing me something. He froze, his eyes staring into nothing. Snap out of it. Rawl shook him hard. Krell blinked, and then smiled. But it wasn't his smile. It was too wide, too slow. When he spoke, his voice was not his own. I am hungry. Krell's eyes were still his own color, but something behind them had changed. The way he stood, the way his lips curled. It was wrong. Lorna backed away until her shoulders hit the wall. Krell, you're scaring me. His head tilted slowly like he was trying to understand the words. When he spoke, his tone was calm. Too calm. Fear makes the meat sweeter. Rawl stepped forward, blocking Krell's path to Lorna. Krell, whatever's in your head, fight it. Krell smiled wider. He's here. He's always been here, waiting in the quiet places. The leader of the armored boarders finally spoke. The horizon has chosen its vessel. Do not interfere. Rawl spun toward him. Vessel? For what? The leader didn't answer. A low groan came from the walls, like a deep, slow breath. The lights flickered, but the glow from the organic veins outside the bridge never faded. Lorna looked at the map display. It had returned on its own, showing their position deeper inside the horizon's body. Every path on the display converged on a single, pulsing core. Krell stepped closer to the main viewport. Beautiful, isn't it? A heart so big it could feed for centuries. Then he pressed his palm against the glass. The organic veins outside pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. Lorna whispered, It's connected to him. The leader of the boarders turned to Rawl. The vessel must be delivered to the core. That is the will. Rawl clenched his fists. And if I refuse? The leader didn't move. Then it will take another. Perhaps her. His visor shifted toward Lorna. Krell turned suddenly, his voice lower now, almost a growl. Don't touch her. She is not for you. She is for me. The words didn't sound like a threat. They sounded like ownership. Without warning, the bridge door slid open. A wet, dragging sound echoed from the hallway. Something was coming toward them. Something that didn't walk like a man. The sound in the hallway grew louder. Wet, heavy, like something dragging a sack of meat over metal. Rawl moved in front of Lorna, his claws flexing. Krell, if that's your new friend, you'd better tell it to stop. Krell didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed fixed on the doorway, his lips curling in a slow smile. It's here. The veins sent it. The thing appeared in the doorway at first it looked like a man, but only for a second. Its body was thin, but stretched too long, the skin pale and half-transparent. Beneath it, thick black veins pulsed, carrying some glowing liquid. Its head tilted, and the skin shifted as if there were too many muscles moving underneath. Lorna's stomach turned. That's a person. The leader of the boarders shook his head slowly. That was a person. Now it is a vein walker. The vein walker stepped inside, its bare feet making wet sounds on the deck. Its chest rose and fell too fast, and with each breath, the veins under its skin glowed brighter. It turned its head toward Krell. Krell stepped forward willingly, as if drawn by an invisible thread. "I'm ready," he said softly. Rawl grabbed his arm. "Like hell you are." Krell's smile faded for the first time. "You don't understand, Rawl. I can hear it. The horizon wants me in the core. I can see what it will make me into." The Vanewalker opened its mouth, far wider than a human should. A wet, sucking sound filled the bridge. The veins in the walls began to glow in time with the thing's breath. Suddenly, the leader of the boarders raised his hand. "Not yet. The vessel must arrive alive. Whole." The Vanewalker froze in place, still staring at Krell. Lorna whispered. "To Rawl. We can't let them take him to the core. If it bonds with him there," Rawl finished for her, "we lose him forever, and maybe ourselves." But before they could plan, the floor under their feet trembled. From deep inside the ship, a low rumble built until it was almost a roar. The walls began to bleed. The first drops hit the deck with soft splashes. At first, Lorna thought it was just condensation from the vents. Then she saw the color, deep red. The blood wasn't dripping from the ceiling. It was seeping out. Thin streams ran along the walls, finding cracks in the metal. They moved like they knew where to go. Rawl's fur bristled. "The horizon is inside the ship." The Vanewalker shuddered, its glowing veins pulsing faster. It inhaled deeply like... The smell of the blood made it stronger. Krell's eyes unfocused. "It's calling to me. I can feel it in the floor." Lorna gripped his shoulders. "Fight it! Don't listen!" The leader of the boarders stood still, watching the blood spread. "It is claiming you. This vessel will not remain yours for long." "What? Do you mean vessel?" Rawl snapped. "Your ship," the leader said. "The horizon will make it part of itself. Then you cannot leave." A metallic groan echoed through the bridge, long and low. The floor tilted slightly, not from thrust, but from something shifting inside the hull. On the main display, the ship's internal map began changing. Corridors were disappearing, replaced by pulsing organic shapes. Lorna's voice cracked. "It's growing inside us." The blood on the floor began to rise, forming slow-moving streams that slithered toward the doorway. From the hall beyond, more footsteps approached. Not boots, bare. Wet, dozens of them. Rawl drew his sidearm. "They're coming, from every direction." The leader of the boarders tilted his head slightly as if listening. "It wishes for no escape." The Vanewalker in the bridge opened its mouth and let out a long, low moan, a sound that made Lorna's skin crawl. The blood streams responded, moving faster, joining together into thicker lines that pulsed with light. The glow matched the rhythm of Krell's heartbeat. Lorna turned to Rawl, her voice barely above a whisper. "If we can stop his heart, maybe it—" She didn't finish. Krell's eyes snapped toward her. "You will not touch me." From the hallway, shapes emerged. Vanewalkers, their bodies stretched and twisted, their eyes glowing faintly from within. They filled the doorway, and the ceiling above began to crack open. The ceiling tore open with a wet, ripping sound. Chunks of metal and strands of glowing veins rained down onto the bridge. The smell hit them next, a heavy, rotten sweetness that made Lorna gag. Rawl shoved her behind a console just as a Vanewalker dropped from above. It landed on all fours, its head twisted backward, grinning at them with too many teeth. Another dropped, and another. Soon the bridge was crawling with them. The leader of the boarders stepped back toward the wall, letting the creatures pass. The horizon will claim what it needs. Do not interfere, and it may leave you alive. Rawl snarled. Not an option. Krell stood in the middle of it all, perfectly still. The creatures moved around him like he was one of them already. He smiled faintly. They won't hurt me. You should come with us. Lorna's eyes went wide. That's not you talking. A Vanewalker lunged at Rawl. He fired twice, both shots hitting center mass. The thing screamed, but instead of falling, its body split open. The glowing veins inside lashed out like tentacles, wrapping around his arm. Rawl roared and tore free, leaving deep cuts in his fur. More blood began dripping from the torn ceiling. It didn't splash. It slid, pulling itself toward Krell like a living thing. Lorna grabbed Rawl's arm. We can't hold the bridge. He nodded. Escape pods. They turned toward the aft hatch, but a thick wall of pulsing flesh had already grown over it. The ship's own metal was being pushed aside by the horizon's veins. Krell tilted his head. You can't run. The horizon has already taken your paths away. Lorna shouted at him. Then it'll have to take us dead. The leader of the boarders suddenly raised his weapon, firing into the ceiling. A rain of sparks fell, followed by a panel crashing to the floor. The tunnels above are still open. Move. Rawl didn't question it. He pushed Lorna toward the exposed maintenance shaft. Vanewalkers hissed and rushed forward. As Lorna climbed, something grabbed her ankle. She looked down. Krell's hand, his eyes locked with hers. You're not leaving me here. Lorna kicked hard, breaking Krell's grip. He stumbled back, not from the force, but as if something inside him didn't want to hurt her. Yet. Rawl grabbed her waist and pulled her up into the maintenance shaft. Below, Vanewalkers leapt, claws scraping the walls, but the opening was too narrow for more than one at a time. The leader of the boarders followed them into the shaft. Rawl didn't trust him, but right now, they needed another gun. The shaft was dark except for the faint glow of veins that had already begun growing along its walls. They pulsed slowly, like the heartbeat of something massive deep below. As they crawled, Lorna felt the vibrations through her hands. They weren't random. They were words, a pattern. She froze. It was speaking to her. Come down. Join us. See what we are building. Keep moving, Rawl barked. But Lorna's mind was full of images. Twisted metal fused with bone, corridors lined with living tissue, a massive shape at the heart of it all. It wasn't a ship anymore. It was a creature, a city, a trap. Behind them, Krell's voice echoed, up the shaft. You can't stop it. You can't even understand it. You think you're escaping, but you're heading exactly where it wants you to be. The shaft ended in a graded platform above a massive open space. Through the gaps, Lorna saw it. The core. A sphere the size of a shuttle, covered in a skin of shifting, glowing veins. It pulsed with slow, heavy beats. Every time it throbbed, the entire ship seemed to breathe. Strange shapes moved around it. Not just Vanewalkers, but other things. Half machines, half organic, crawling in and out of the core's surface like insects tending a hive. The leader of the boarders whispered something in a language neither Rawl nor Lorna knew. But his voice trembled. Then the core spoke. Not into their ears, but directly into their heads. You have traveled far. You have seen the void. Now see what comes after. You will be part of the next world. The platform shook suddenly. Below, a mass of veins shot upward, wrapping around the edges like fingers reaching for them. Krell's voice came again, but this time it was the core speaking through him. Step down and be remade. The core's veins lashed upward, wrapping around the platform. Metal groaned under the pressure. One more pull and it would tear them down into its pulsing mass. Rawl fired at the thickest vein. The blasts scorched the surface, but the flesh sealed over almost instantly. The core's voice filled their heads again. "You waste your strength. Come and be remade." Lorna's eyes darted to the maintenance shaft wall. Bundles of power cables ran along the side, thick, high-voltage lines that fed into the core chamber. She looked at Rawl. "If we overload those, it'll fry everything connected to it." "That includes us," Rawl said flatly. Lorna's grip tightened on her blaster. "Only if we're still here when it blows." The leader of the boarders moved forward. "I will hold them back. You will make the strike." Rawl stared at him. "Why help us now?" The alien's jaw clenched. "Because I have seen what happens when it finishes growing." The veins surged upward, pulling harder at the platform. One of the core's tendrils wrapped around Rawl's leg, yanking him off balance. Lorna fired point blank, the blast burning the vein in half. They moved fast. Lorna ripped the insulation from the power cables, sparks spitting against her arms. Rawl set his blaster to overheat, turning it into an improvised torch. The heat made the cables swell, the insulation curling back. The smell of burning plastic filled the air. Below, the core roared, not with sound, but inside their skulls. The entire chamber shook, as if the horizon was trying to throw them off. Krell appeared at the edge of the platform, his face blank. "You're not stopping it," he said. "It's already in you." Rawl hesitated, but Lorna didn't. She slammed her shoulder into Krell, sending him tumbling into the mass of veins below. The core caught him and pulled him inside. The T. Cables screamed as the overload built, the chamber filled with blinding white light. "Go!" Rawl shouted. They dove into the maintenance shaft, climbing upward as the core's roar grew into a piercing, endless shriek. Then, silence. When Lorna opened her eyes, she was in the escape pod. Rawl sat across from her, breathing hard. Through the viewport, they saw what was left of their ship, a twisted, burning shape drifting in the dark. They didn't speak for a long time. Finally, Rawl asked, "Think we killed it?" Lorna shook. Her head, slowly. In the reflection of the viewport, her eyes glowed faintly. "It's already in you," Krell's voice whispered in her mind.